Hey guys, welcome to this very interesting episode of Dawdle.live, a different one, but we have been joined by, a prolific investor who have been on the podcast for a couple of times before as well. Devang Mehta with me. Devang is a technocrat, is a pass out of Carnegie Mellon and has been into the investment ecosystem for a very long time, have guided a lot of startups, is himself an angel investor and is also a part of a lot of, other VC funds as well. I welcome you, Devang. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes. And today's session, we're going to cover a very important thing. You all startups out there who are building something, product, a service, or anything that you're building. You all are looking to raise funds, or not all, maybe most of you are looking to raise funds because capital is so very important to scale your growth. You go to various events, you go to various pitch sessions, you go and pitch in front of the investors. Many a times, you are kind of disheartened because you are rejected. You feel that, things are not working out well for you. You feel that people are not understanding your idea well. And many a times it also leads to shutting down of startups and going back to job again. So to handle all these things, what are the major pitfalls that you may face while you are raising money? We have been joined by Mr. Devang Mehta, who will be talking around all these pointers so that this can guide you while you're raising funds, and this can also help you, raise funds properly. Thank you so much, Devang, for joining us. We'll start with the first topic that we have. But before we go there, maybe Devang, if you could, if you would want to give an intro into, the conversations that we'll want to have.
Thanks, Rishikesh. So by way of introduction, I'm an advisor to startups and venture capital funds. I'm advising a couple of venture capital funds on the thesis, fundraise, and realizing exits from the market. I spend most of my time advising early stage companies on fundraise and all the activities adjacent to it, which include pitch deck creation, refinement, discussion on the valuation, how much to raise, through what instrument, essentially fundraise strategy. I do a lot of mock pitches with founders to help them prepare for investor conversations and investor speak, as I call it, and then help them negotiate term sheet share agreements all the way till money is wired into the bank account. So that's a typical life cycle of a fundraise. I have more than, as you said, 25 years in the industry in operational and investing roles. I've been part of numerous startups in the Silicon Valley. Been an angel investor. I've been a general partner at a VC firm called Antil Ventures, and academically, I'm trained in computer science and engineering, and I have an MBA from Carnegie Mellon.
Thanks so much, Devang. So whenever, a startup is going for a fundraise, the first thing what they do is to build a deck. Or I would say, before they build a product, they build a deck. So what should be a good deck like, a pitch deck? What should it include?
So hopefully, first of all, it's the former. First you have a product and then you have a deck. Because people make that mistake quite a bit. So, I mean, theoretically it can work if you have found a cure for diabetes in India and are still finalizing the product, which happens. Of course, this is an extreme example, a complete outlier. You can have a deck that talks about your qualifications and pedigree, and it can be well received by the market. But usually, 98% of the times, you should have a product that is at least at MVP stage, ideally at beta, that is ready to at least be suitable for a couple of corporate customers if you're into B2B, or the first 1,000, 5,000 users if you're B2C. It should be ready there. And then the deck should be, articulating the clear value proposition. A lot of founders make numerous mistakes in the deck. And first, the key point is that if you're raising anywhere outside of friends and family, a bad deck could still be okay, though it's never recommended, but still be okay with friends and family because they're investing in you. These are typically people that you've known since childhood, close friends, family, and also they're investing in you, and they might gloss over a few mistakes here and there in the deck. But the moment the deck goes outside this immediate circle of people that you know, they will be very unforgiving of a badly created deck. Some common pitfalls that I see even today: a lot of text on each slide. People get lost. I think founders forget that they live their dream 14, 16 hours a day. Let's say it's a fintech company, but it goes to investors who are not only investing in fintech, they are agnostic across the board. They see dozens of business plans a day, so they don't know exactly what you're doing. And for you to assume they know what you're doing is wrong. And then putting this tons of text of minutiae about the product or services, the key message gets lost very quickly. And then you might have the best offering in the world, but an investor is very likely to get disconnected from your deck and by extension your startup in a very short amount of time. Similarly, some what I call rookie mistakes, putting the valuation on a slide you're never supposed to do that. It's a topic and subject for later discussion. and many such things. I counsel startups on well-created decks, but it should be slick, powerful, give the right message, capture key points, capture momentum, what you've done so far, what your growth trajectory is. Founding team members' profiles should fully reflect the abilities and strengths of your startup. And then, there are finer elements that go into it, but you should definitely spend a lot of time to get a well-created deck.
Got it. These are very important points. Like, first is that it should be sleek. It should not be wordy. You should not write valuation over there because that's a discussion of the future. And it should also mention the exact problem statement that you're solving
Yes, yes,
in a very, kind of user friendly way.
right,
And since you may be investing 16, 17 hours a day, that is understandable. You have taken the path of being a founder, so you have to invest.
right.
Otherwise, you would have easily worked for a, company like working 10 hours. So you're not doing anything, kind of, किसी पे एहसान नहीं, आप फाउंडर बने हैं, आपको करना ही पड़ेगा.
Yes, yes. And I think, of course, it takes courage and discipline and focus to be a founder. So, not to take anything away from it. In fact, when I say this, I'm empathizing with them that you put a lot of hard work to come where you are. People often gloss over a deck, as in, I'll write what I feel like, or I think this is fine, no matter what other people say. And in a very short amount of time, you are undoing a lot of the work you've done in building a company to the scale. So, you should view deck creation as a very important activity. And if you're doing it for the first time, I strongly recommend you speak to professional advisors or people who've done this before numerous times to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much similar to the first time that you're going to meet a girl that you're going to get married. पहली बारी में तो आपको अच्छे ड्रेस पहन के से रहना है. 2-3 मीटिंग हो उसके बाद then you can even go in your shorts. So deck has got that rule.
I'm not sure if that's the best analogy, but we can I'll stick to my line of words.
Done. It's like job interview only, like the CV is very important. So
Yeah, I think in a job interview, look, you prepare your whole background, your education, your projects, your white papers and all that, and then if you go shabbily dressed to a job interview, all the hard work gets undone. I mean, you might be trying to make a statement that I'm the best engineer in the world. If you're not appropriately prepared for a meeting from a dressing standpoint or from an articulation standpoint in a broad sense, I think it undoes a lot of hard work.
right. Now the next pitfall that we see is that, founders are not practicing their pitch enough. Would you like to throw some light on that?
Yes, this is again a highly trivialized point, but somehow it's for many founders it's hard to accept that they're not able to talk about their pitch properly. They are, someone wisely said that there are people that can speak in English, but they cannot communicate in English.
Mm.
Right? It's not enough to speak in English. You have to communicate. You have to charm. You have to impress. Right? That doesn't come easily, especially in India. I see it till date. But a lot of the founding teams are technical and engineering heavy, and that's nothing wrong with that. It's the strength of our startup ecosystem and of chunks of the economy and GDP really are engineering talent. But it does not help get over the point that if you don't articulate well, the pitch will not be well received. Now, you might get lucky, or you might. I mean, if you really have, let's say, the best cybersecurity or quantum security solution in the world that no one is able to match, and you have 5 patents and 7 PhDs in the team, then it probably becomes less important. Again, I'm talking about outliers. 95% of the startups, you have innovation for sure, you have trajectory, you have growth hacking skills, but you have to be able to communicate those to investors, which if you've not done it before, if it's your first startup, in many cases it's lacking, and it's something I help train startups with.
Got it. So the point important is you should not only be able to speak English, but you should be able to communicate it well
Yeah.
in the language in which the investors can understand. So what is the language that investors understand like?
They want to see founders who are highly pedigreed, both in terms of education and in terms of what they've done after their academic achievements in the workplace, if it's what they've achieved together as a team in the startup, what their idea is, how scalable it is. So I always say, if someone is, I always point startups and founders to the trajectory. If you're talking to someone who's a seed VC, right, they want to at a minimum see that this startup is Series A able. That if I'm if 5 CR is being raised at its seed right now, in 18 months, they'll raise a $5 million round at a Series A point, at the Series A stage, I should say. If you're talking to a Series A investor who's putting in 5 mil, they want to make sure that now that you've hit your growth stride, you can take it to a point where in 18 months to 2 years, you'll raise a Series B of 10, 20 million. And a Series B person who's investing 10 to 20 million dollars wants to know that either you're able to raise private equity money in a couple of years or you're well on the path towards IPO. In other words, they want to make sure that they will make money if they invest in you at this point.
Yes.
So that is what you have to be able to convince them in your interactions with them, right? You have to show a classical J curve growth trajectory that's pointing to the right and to the top.
Hockey stick.
Hockey stick, yes. And
What?
that is a function of many things: team, total addressable market, technology moat, or overall moat of the company, that they are able to create better products and sell better than others competitors. It could be sheer IP. If you found something that's very hard to, not just copy but replace, right? I mean, it's very hard to do in general if someone decides to do the same thing starting today. So the lead that you have over the next competitor should be substantive enough to be defensible for at a startup level.
Got it. But what about those founders like who are from tier 2, tier 3 cities? They don't speak good English. They speak Bengali, Tamil, Kannada, and but they have built a very good, solution. And they are also not pedigreed, let's suppose.
Look, so there's no absolute. You don't have to go to IIT or BITS to get funded. You don't have to speak the Queen's English to get funded. A lot of funding is happening in these tier 2 and tier 3 cities and towns in India: Jaipur, Bhubaneswar, Indore. Startups there are getting funded, so it's not happening. Some of these startups could have the shall we say drawbacks that you just pointed out. But so I think a long-winded answer to this is, you should take some help to get to the point where it's not guaranteed, but you're more likely to succeed at investor interaction.
Yes.
There's definitely a need to get better prepared. And then if you don't have, if you didn't go to Premier Institute, that's fine. There's ways to explain that in conversations through the deck and all that, of how, I mean, in spite of that, you've built something that is truly, truly scalable and has a potential to be a unicorn. My favorite startup company called Early Sign, that's the brand name. The company is Curo Biosciences, based out of Nagpur. It's not exactly a hotspot in India startup ecosystem, Nagpur, but they came out of there. It has a university flavor to it. The research came out of university and all that, and they found a way to detect cancer at a pre-cancerous stage through saliva. It's a remarkable innovation. And then, they're able to, through sheer grit and hard work, they're able to build a product and get to the point where they might be able to enter the market and scale to millions of users. Fair. I mean, just because you're not in Mumbai, NCR, or Bangalore, you didn't go to BITS or ISB, doesn't mean you won't get funded. There's a lot of funding available, and especially at the angel stage. There's a lot of angel investors and aggregation platforms and angel funds that are ready and willing to fund the right idea coming out of these tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Yeah. But the problem happens is that, these tier 2, tier 3 founders, they don't have connections also. And these tier 1 founders, they have better connections. And you talk about bits or institutes which are so-called good. They also have a lot of connections.
Yes.
And connections, I think, play a very important role, to get funds, especially in the initial stages. From the VCs or from the angel investors. So these people start getting a lot demotivated because they start feeling that they don't have connections. They're going to various events like, last week there was a NASCOM event in Delhi, and there were 7 8 startups which participated, and all of them were like tier 2, tier 3 ones. So should they get demotivated like because they don't have connections? How should they go about it?
No, absolutely not. The startup ecosystem is not for the shy. You have to be bold, and you cannot take failure too hard so easily. You have to be thick-skinned, and and this is for all founders. If you're in tier 1 from an IIT and well connected, doesn't mean that it's it's an easy ride for you. It's maybe marginally easier. Now, don't get motivated. We should connect with platforms like yours. LinkedIn is an invaluable tool. It's someone I met the other day called it's my right thumb. It's day begins and ends with LinkedIn. But in general, the reason why it's a bit easier for what we call the top tier founders is that if you've gone to a Premier Institute and you're in a cosmopolitan city, it's easier to physically network, right, with your peers, with your colleagues who might go on to become analysts and associates at VC firms, or networking events that are held in preponderance at Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai. So it's just easier to physically attend these events and network a bit better. There's just a fraction of all the networking opportunities available across the country, and that too, we're just talking about offline events. Online, it's a pretty level playing field.
Yeah. So we at Dawdle also do, networking events between investors and founders. So, you guys can even kind of reach out to us if you want to talk to Devang and take his feedbacks in live sessions and also in private sessions as well. Yeah. So, and our heart goes out to tier 3 founders, like, kind of, we need more entrepreneurship at grassroots level, and that is good. Great. And there are many times, where we find that, the ecosystem, the buzz that has been created on LinkedIn, it kind of forces a founder to go for raising funds before building anything. And like last week, I was talking to a person, he's like 22, 23 years old. He became an investment banker after 2, 3 years of working in a company, and he was earning good amount. Like he was getting around 25, 30 lakhs for a 2, 3 year old experienced guy. 25 lakhs is a good amount. And then he suddenly left his job because somebody in his circle told that no, you should do a startup. And then he built a startup, and from day one he was looking to raise funds. Didn't build an MVP, and 6 months down the line the entire money was done and dusted. And now he called me, he told that, Rishikesh, I'm looking to go back to the job again. Such kind of examples are too many. I also see a lot of people who are unemployed doing startups in India, who didn't get a job, so they find a startup as a way to show to the world that they're capable of doing something, although they may not be interested. So with all this noise available, Devang, like, how do investors or advisors like you identify the right startups?
Yeah, so to address the first point, I think the days of irrational euphoria are largely over. It still might be happening here and there, but maybe 5 years ago, you could really try and raise money on a deck. Now, those days are largely over in India. I think there's a broad maturing of the startup industry and all the participants for first time founders to find it much harder to raise, especially if there's no genuine product or service behind them. The point that you mentioned about just starting a company to ride out tough times where you're not getting a job, I think that's not necessarily a good idea.
Yes.
You should start a company for the right reasons, that you want to be an entrepreneur, that you've hit upon a genuine pain point or a genuine shortfall in the industry that is not being served by anyone else, and that you have the skills, experience, and the ability to build a scalable startup in that space. That's why you should start a company, right? And then you have the ambition, the drive, and the personal traits required to be a founder. If you're finding it hard to get a job and just filling in spaces on the LinkedIn profiles to what people call resume padding, I don't think that's a good idea. If you're sure you want to do a job, it's better to, for example, go out in the world and take courses in AI, for example, or just learn from peers and build a better resume for an appropriate job function if that's what your intent is. So start a company for the right reasons. Build the right startup, get timing right. It's important. I know it's not always possible, but do it for the right reasons and connect with the right people to help scale.
Right. And now we'll talk about a little bit around corporate hygiene, like
Yes.
which includes financials, IP, founder agreements, ESOPs. Let's cover this one by one. So once we talk about financials, what does it mean?
So again, the moment you go outside friends, family, right, even to sophisticated angel investors, and definitely for institutional investors that typically come in at Series A or B, all these things need to be in order. Audited financials, filings with the regulatory authorities, founder agreements that clearly lay out equity vesting periods, what if scenarios, what if a founder does leave, what happens to the shares. There are a lot of the bickering between founders happens at this stage in a startup's evolution, and both founders, or as many founders they are in a startup, need to be prepared for such scenarios. God forbid they do happen. If someone does leave a company, do they take the equity with them or not, or sell it back to the company? The latter is preferred, because if you think from an investor lens, you come into a company that is 80% owned by founders, of which one guy is left and still holds on to 30-40% of the company. It's a very unwieldy situation, right? It's not ideal by any stretch. ESOPs also, I think India is a little bit of a laggard in handing out ESOPs, especially if investors are not insisting on it. But I'm seeing a change in the trend now. A good startup always carves out 5 to 10% of the equity pool for promising employees that will join a startup most likely at a base compensation significantly lower than industry. So you need to have some carrots available to lure talented people into your startup and align them with mid and long term growth, for which ESOPs is a wonderful vehicle to align that ambition and your upside.
Yes.
So yeah, all these things again are, how shall we say, it's kind of frowned upon by founders because they're so excited about building a product, growth hacking, getting to the first 100 customers, 1,000 users, downloads or page views or whatever. But when an investor comes in somewhat suddenly and starts asking for all these things in your data room, and if it's lacking, then and it's all of a sudden it disrupts operations at a minimum. Then all the energy of the founding team goes towards getting these things in order for a proper funding event,
Yes.
which a lot lesser time and attention would have been necessary at the earlier stage when it should be done in the right place.
Right. This is very critical. And what about IP, like intellectual property?
It's very important. I mean, if you have something that's truly defensible from a technology perspective, it automatically creates a nice moat. If you're able to fend off someone that comes to do the same thing, at least to the extent possible. And a lot of these IPs now are applicable to numerous countries. So, it's not just India. If you're trying to market in, let's say, Singapore, US, Europe, try and get as broad an IP as possible so that it creates areas which are defensible and it's looked upon very favorably by incoming investors.
Right. And now talking about valuation, because that's a kind of a black box. A lot of the founders, especially in the initial stages, they value their company anything, right? From 5 lakh rupees to even going till 100 crore rupees. So would you like to throw some light on this, wild estimates of valuations, which usually you see on the pitch decks?
Yeah, there's a lot of outlandish numbers that I see every day. I think it's simply not thought through. It almost depends on sometimes the mood of the people. I'm feeling really bullish today. My equities was 100 crores. I'm raising 10 CR at 10% dilution, pre-revenue company with little differentiation. It's not going to happen. Or sometimes valuation is both an art and a science, and it's hard to do as a founder, right? You can't be emotionally disassociated from this number. So it's best done by a third party, someone who advises you on what's at least a range of values that are acceptable and logical for where you are in your progression. If you're able to do that in-house, then it's fine. But I don't find that happening in many scenarios. Either people have little clue on what their valuation should be realistically, or they have outlandish numbers. And then in some cases, they're they just say we'll wait for the first investor to come in, and then we'll essentially hold a quasi auction at that point.
Yeah, that's true. Like, absolutely. Like,
Yes.
and that is where, the role of advisors like Devang, comes into the picture because
Yeah.
there's a lot of fear mongering happening in this space where you get anxious, you feel that things are not working out. And that is where you should start approaching people who really have knowledge, who have been into the industry for a long time. And you should also be respecting their time because as an entrepreneur, what I have learned in the last 2 years is that you should be very open with giving money and then only the money comes to you. So if you are not respecting others' time, your time may not be respected. So that is where, we can truly understand that there's a lot of confusion, and that is why we are holding this session as well.
Yes.
So that more and more people can understand. I will also put the link of our next investor session that is
Yes.
going to happen. So kindly fill that form out. Devang will go through the pitch decks one by one, and we'll see that if it kind of fits into his schema of things, we'll invite you for a session and we'll also guide you through. So thank you so much, Devang, for joining us. Any last thoughts that you want to give?
No, I think you've covered most of it. I think just to reiterate, definitely don't be pessimistic if you're from tier 2, tier 3, or from non-prime institutes. I just want to be sure we get that message across through this channel that there's definitely room for numerous startups in India to get funded from all walks of life. So build the right startup at the right time with the right team, and definitely get the right guidance to tremendously improve your chances of growth and getting funded.
Thank you so much, Devang, for taking out time. And we look forward to having a few startups lined up for your guidance. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much.